When he terminated the marriage contract, she cut off his entire empire. But he didn't know it yet. Adrian Locke thought divorce meant freedom. He thought Serena Vale would disappear quietly, broken, and forgotten. He was wrong. 3 years later, she returned, not with tears, but with a wedding ring from the most dangerous man in the city and controlling shares in everything Adrian built. What he took from her in silence, she reclaimed in blood and precision. This is the story of a woman erased who rewrote the entire game. Follow along to the end, like and comment the city you're watching to let me know how far this story has progressed. The champagne cork hit the ceiling of the glass-walled courtroom with a hollow pop that echoed like a gunshot. Adrian Locke didn't flinch. He threw his head back and laughed, a sound too loud for a place meant for solemnity, too sharp for a man who'd just legally severed himself from another human being. The blonde on his arm, 24, maybe younger, giggled into his shoulder, her dress cut low enough to make the bailiff look away. Across the polished marble floor, Serena Vale sat with her hands folded in her lap. She didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge the performance. Her lawyer whispered something, probably condolences, probably platitudes, but Serena's face remained smooth as porcelain, empty. Adrian watched her from the corner of his eye, waiting for the crack, waiting for tears, for rage, for something that would confirm what he already believed, that he'd won. Nothing came. The judge had left 10 minutes ago. The paperwork was signed. 7 years of marriage dissolved into ink and legal jargon, and Adrian felt lighter than he had in years. He hadn't loved Serena in a long time, maybe never. She'd been useful once, smart, driven. She'd helped him build Locke Enterprises from a struggling consultancy into a multi-million-dollar empire. But useful had an expiration date, and Serena's had come and gone. "Baby, let's get out of here," the blonde, Chloe, or maybe Chelsea, purred against his neck. "This place gives me the creeps." Adrian grinned, finally pulling his gaze away from Serena. "Yeah, let's go celebrate properly." He didn't wait to see if Serena left first. Didn't care. As far as Adrian was concerned, she'd already stopped existing the moment the judge declared them legally separate. He strutted out of the courtroom with Chloe draped over him like a coat, his assistant trailing behind with a briefcase full of irrelevant documents. Outside, the city stretched beneath them, steel and glass and endless possibility. Adrian felt like a king. Behind him, Serena finally stood. Her lawyer offered his hand to help her up, but she waved him off. She moved slowly, deliberately, gathering her coat and purse with the kind of precision that came from years of holding herself together when everything inside wanted to collapse. She didn't cry. She'd stopped crying 3 months ago, when Adrian had first told her about the divorce. When he'd told her she could keep the apartment, his apartment, he'd made sure to clarify, and a generous settlement that wouldn't even cover a year of her previous lifestyle. She'd signed the papers without argument, hadn't fought for more, hadn't screamed or thrown things, or hired a ruthless attorney to bleed him dry. Adrian had called it maturity, his mother had called it dignity, his friends had called it pathetic. Serena called it strategy. She walked out of the courtroom into the late autumn air. The city smelled like rain and exhaust. Her heels clicked against the pavement in a steady rhythm, one foot, then the other, then the other. She didn't look back at the building, didn't glance at the black town car idling at the curb where Adrian and his new toy were already climbing inside. She walked 3 blocks to the nearest subway station, descended into the fluorescent buzz of the underground, and disappeared. Adrian didn't think about Serena for 6 weeks. He was too busy enjoying his freedom, dinners at restaurants he'd avoided because Serena didn't like red meat, late nights at clubs he'd stopped visiting because she'd called them juvenile, mornings waking up to women whose names he forgot by noon. It was intoxicating. He felt young again. Alive. Locke Enterprises was thriving. A new tech acquisition had just closed, an AI startup worth $50 million that would position Adrian as a major player in the automation space. The press loved him. Forbes had called him a visionary. Business Insider had done a feature on his bold leadership style. Adrian ate it up. He gave interviews from his corner office, the skyline glittering behind him like a halo. No one mentioned Serena. No one asked about the divorce. It was as if she'd never existed. Then the first domino fell. It started small, so small Adrian almost missed it. A supplier contract fell through. Not unusual, contracts fell through all the time. But then another one collapsed. Then a third. Adrian's CFO brought it to his attention during a quarterly review, his brow furrowed in confusion. It's strange, Paul said, tapping his pen against the report. These were locked deals. I don't understand why they're pulling out now. Adrian waved a hand dismissively. They got cold feet. It happens. Renegotiate. Offer them better terms if you have to. Paul hesitated. I tried. They're not interested. One of them said they'd found a more aligned partner, whatever that means. Then find new suppliers. Jesus, Paul, do I have to hold your hand through everything? Paul left the office tight-lipped, and Adrian went back to scrolling through his phone. Chloe, or Chelsea, had sent him a string of texts about dinner reservations. He fired back a reply and forgot about the contracts entirely. But the problems didn't stop. Over the next month, 3 more deals evaporated. Investors who'd been eager suddenly turned cold. A major client, a healthcare conglomerate that represented 15% of Locke Enterprises' annual revenue, announced they were ending their partnership. No explanation, just a polite email and a termination clause. Adrian started sleeping less. He snapped at his assistant, fired 2 junior analysts for missing projections that weren't their fault. The press started asking questions, gentle ones at first, then sharper. Is Locke Enterprises losing its edge? One headline read. Adrian threw the magazine across his office. Find out what the hell is going on, he barked at Paul during an emergency meeting. Someone's sabotaging us. Sabotage? Paul blinked. Adrian, I don't pay you to think. I pay you to fix problems, so fix this. Paul nodded slowly, but Adrian could see the doubt in his eyes. He hated that look, hated the implication that maybe, just maybe, this was Adrian's fault. It wasn't. It couldn't be. Samak. 3,000 miles away, Serena Vale sat in a cafe overlooking a harbor she'd never seen before. The city was different here, older, quieter, built from stone instead of steel. She liked it. Liked the way people didn't stare, didn't recognize her, didn't ask questions. She was nobody here, and that anonymity was the most powerful thing she'd ever owned. She sipped her espresso and opened her laptop. The screen glowed with spreadsheets, contracts, acquisition reports. She scanned them with the focus of a surgeon, her fingers moving across the keyboard in quick, precise strokes. Every number told a story. Every line item was a thread in a web she'd been weaving for months. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unlisted number. 3 more contracts secured. Locke's Q4 projections are down 18%. Serena allowed herself a small smile. She typed back, Good. Keep pressure on the healthcare sector. I want them bleeding by January. She closed the laptop and leaned back in her chair, watching the boats drift across the water. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rust. It reminded her of the courtroom, the way the light had slanted through those glass walls, illuminating Adrian's smug face as he popped champagne. She wondered if he was smiling now. Adrian wasn't smiling. He was pacing his office like a caged animal, his tie loosened, his shirt wrinkled. It was past midnight, but he couldn't go home. Couldn't face the empty penthouse or Chloe's vapid chatter. He'd sent her away 3 days ago, told her he needed space. She'd cried. He hadn't cared. The numbers didn't make sense. That's what Paul kept saying. The losses were too clean, too coordinated. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't market shifts. Someone was orchestrating this. But who? Adrian had enemies, every successful man did, but none of them had this kind of reach, this kind of precision. He pulled up his contacts, scrolling through names until he found one that made his jaw clench. Marcus Hale, a private investigator, expensive, discreet, and ruthless. Adrian had used him once before, years ago, to dig up dirt on a competitor. He dialed the number. Marcus answered on the second ring. Locke, it's been a while. I need you to find someone. Who? Adrian hesitated. It felt insane even saying her name, but the timing was too suspicious. The divorce, the silence, the sudden unraveling of everything he'd built. Serena Vale, my ex-wife. There was a pause on the other end. You think she's involved in this? I don't know. Just find her. I want to know where she is, what she's doing, who she's talking to, everything. All right, give me a week. Adrian hung up and stared out the window. The city looked different at night, darker, sharper, less forgiving. He pressed his palm against the cold glass and tried to remember the last time he'd felt in control. He couldn't. Osich. Serena met Lucien Drax on a Tuesday. She'd been in the city for 4 months by then, settling into a rhythm that felt almost peaceful. Mornings at the cafe, afternoons reviewing reports from the team she'd quietly assembled. Lawyers, analysts, former Locke Enterprises employees who'd left bitter and eager for revenge. Evenings walking along the waterfront, letting the salt air clear her head. She wasn't looking for anything, certainly not him. But Lucian wasn't the kind of man you found. He found you. She was leaving the cafe when it happened, a black car pulling up to the curb, the back door opening, a voice smooth as smoke calling out, "Ms. Vale." Serena froze. No one here knew her name. She'd been careful. She turned slowly, her hand tightening around the strap of her bag. The man stepping out of the car was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her first apartment. His face was hard but handsome, all sharp angles and controlled intensity. Dark eyes that didn't blink, didn't waver. "You don't know me," he said, his accent faintly European, "but I know you." Serena's pulse kicked up, but her expression stayed calm. "That's not comforting." He smiled, a flash of white teeth that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to offer you something." "I'm not interested." "You don't even know what it is." "Doesn't matter." Lucian tilted his head, studying her the way a predator studies prey. But there was something else in his gaze. Respect, maybe. Or curiosity. "You're rebuilding," he said, quietly, carefully, targeting Adrian Locke's empire piece by piece. "I admire that." Serena's blood turned to ice. She didn't move, didn't speak. Lucian stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're good, but you're working alone. That makes you vulnerable. I can change that." "Who are you?" "Lucian Drax." The name meant nothing to her, but the weight of it, the way he said it, like it should open doors or close them, told her everything she needed to know. "You're connected," she said. "I own things, people, opportunities." He paused. "And I have no love for men like Adrian Locke." Serena's throat tightened. She wanted to walk away, wanted to tell him to go to hell. But something in his voice, something steady and unyielding, made her hesitate. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Lucian's smile returned, sharper this time. "Dinner. One conversation. If you still want me gone after that, I'll disappear." She should have said no. Should have turned and walked away and never looked back. Instead, she said, "One conversation." But dinner was at a restaurant Serena couldn't pronounce, tucked into a corner of the city where tourists didn't go. The kind of place that didn't have menus, where the chef decided what you ate and you either loved it or left. Lucian ordered for both of them in flawless Italian, and Serena sat across from him feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. He didn't waste time with small talk. "I know what Adrian did to you," Lucian said, his voice low. "I know he took credit for your work, used your ideas to build his company, erased you." Serena's jaw tightened. "You've been digging." "It's what I do." "Why?" "Because I wanted to know who you were, and now I do." He leaned forward, his gaze locked on hers. "You're not a victim, Ms. Vale. You're a strategist, and you're patient. That's rare." Serena set down her fork. "What do you want, Mr. Drax?" "I want to help you finish what you started." "I don't need help." "Maybe not. But you need resources, influence, protection." He paused. "Adrian Locke is starting to notice. It won't be long before he figures out it's you, and when he does, he'll come after you with everything he has." Serena's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. "I can handle Adrian. Can you handle his lawyers, his investigators, his money?" Lucian's smile was cold. "You're fighting a war, Ms. Vale, and wars require armies." She stared at him, her mind racing. He was right. She knew it. Adrian was already suspicious. Marcus Hale's name had appeared in her network alerts 2 days ago. It was only a matter of time before he connected the dots. "What's in it for you?" she asked. Lucian sat back, swirling his wine. "I enjoy watching arrogant men fall, especially men who think they're untouchable." "That's it?" "That's enough." Serena studied him. He didn't look away, didn't flinch. There was something almost inhuman about his stillness, like he'd learned to eliminate anything that could be used against him. "I'll think about it," she said finally. Lucian inclined his head. "Take your time, but not too much." Marcus Hale called Adrian a week later. I found her. Adrian nearly dropped his phone. Where? Europe. She's been living in a coastal city under her maiden name. Quiet, low profile. What's she doing? That's the interesting part. Marcus paused. She's not doing anything. No job, no social life. She pays rent on a small apartment, buys groceries, goes to cafes. It's like she's waiting. Waiting for what? I don't know, but I'll keep watching. Adrian hung up and stared at the wall. Serena, in Europe, doing nothing. It didn't make sense, unless... No, that was insane. Serena didn't have the resources to hurt him. She didn't have the connections. She was just... His phone buzzed. An email from Paul. Another investor pulled out. Same pattern. No explanation. Adrian's stomach dropped. He thought about Serena's face in the courtroom, the way she'd sat so still, so calm. And for the first time since the divorce, Adrian Locke felt afraid. Adrian didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office with the lights off, the city sprawling below him like a circuit board, thousands of tiny lights blinking in patterns he used to understand. His phone lay face down on the desk. He'd read Paul's email 17 times. Another investor pulled out. Same pattern. No explanation. The coincidence was too clean, too deliberate. Serena's face kept flashing in his mind. Not the broken woman he'd expected to see in that courtroom, but the still one. The quiet one. The one who'd looked at him like he was already irrelevant. He grabbed his phone and called Marcus again. It's 3 a.m, Marcus answered, his voice gravelly with sleep. I don't care. Dig deeper. I want to know everyone she's talked to, every transaction she's made, every goddamn coffee she's bought. Adrian, just do it. He hung up before Marcus could argue. His hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the desk, willing them to stop. This was ridiculous. Serena didn't have the capacity to hurt him. She was smart, sure, but smart didn't mean dangerous. Smart didn't mean... His email dinged. Another message from Paul. Need to talk. In person. Now. Adrian's jaw clenched. He typed back. My office, 20 minutes. Paul arrived in 15, his tie crooked, his eyes red-rimmed. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in the past month. We have a problem, Paul said, dropping a folder onto Adrian's desk. I gathered that. No, you don't understand. Paul opened the folder, spreading documents across the polished surface. These losses aren't random, they're coordinated. Look, every single contract that fell through, every investor who pulled out, they all have one thing in common. Adrian leaned forward, scanning the pages. Names, dates, companies he recognized, and some he didn't. What am I looking at? They're all connected to a shell corporation based in Luxembourg. I traced the ownership through 6 layers of holding companies, and it all leads back to one entity, Veil Strategies. Veil Strategies? Adrian frowned. Never heard of them. Nobody has. They don't exist on paper beyond a registration filed 4 months ago. Paul's finger stabbed at a document. But whoever's behind it has been buying up our contracts, poaching our clients, and convincing our investors to jump ship. And they're doing it quietly, methodically. Adrian's stomach turned over. 4 months ago, right after the divorce. Can you trace it further? He asked, his voice tight. I'm trying, but whoever set this up knew what they were doing. Every trail goes cold. Adrian sat back in his chair, his mind racing. It had to be a competitor, someone who saw the divorce as weakness and decided to move in. But who? He'd burned enough bridges over the years. It could be anyone. Keep digging, he said. I want a name. Paul hesitated. Adrian, there's something else. What? Veil Strategies isn't just targeting us. They're targeting you, personally. I found transactions linked to your personal assets, properties, investments. Someone's building a case against you. The air left Adrian's lungs. What kind of case? I don't know yet, but it's detailed. Forensic, like they're preparing for something big. Adrian's hands curled into fists. He wanted to break something, wanted to scream. Instead, he forced himself to breathe. Find out who owns Veil Strategies, he said quietly. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what you have to do. Find them. Paul nodded and left, and Adrian was alone again with the city and the silence and the growing certainty that he'd underestimated someone. He just didn't know who yet. But deep down, in a place he refused to acknowledge, he knew. Bats. Serena sat across from Lucien in his office, a sprawling space that occupied the top floor of a building she hadn't even known existed. The walls were floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a view of the harbor that made her cafe look quaint by comparison. Everything here was sharp edges and muted tones designed to intimidate. Lucien leaned back in his chair, a glass of something amber in his hand. He looked relaxed, comfortable, like he owned the world and was just waiting for everyone else to realize it. "Your ex-husband hired an investigator," he said. Serena didn't flinch. "I know. Marcus Hale. Good at his job. He'll find you eventually." "Let him." Lucien's eyebrow arched. "You're not concerned?" "Should I be?" He studied her for a long moment, then smiled. A real one this time, not the predatory flash he usually gave. "You're either very brave or very stupid. Or very prepared. Which are you?" Serena met his gaze without blinking. "Ask me again in 6 months." Lucien laughed, a low, genuine sound that seemed out of place coming from him. He set down his glass and stood, moving to the window. The light caught the sharp planes of his face, turning him into something almost sculptural. "I've been thinking about your situation," he said. "Adrian Locke is going to figure out it's you. And when he does, he'll come after you with everything he has. Lawyers, investigators, maybe worse. I can handle Adrian." "Can you?" Lucien turned to face her. "He's desperate now. Desperate men do stupid things, dangerous things." Serena's throat tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "What are you suggesting? That you let me help you. Really help you. Not just with resources or information, but with protection." He paused. "Marry me." The words landed like a grenade. Serena stared at him, waiting for the punchline. When none came, she laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "You're insane." "I'm practical. You want to marry me to... what? Protect me from my ex-husband? Among other things." Lucien crossed the room, stopping a few feet from her chair. "Think about it, Ms. Vale. Right now, you're operating alone, vulnerable. If Adrian decides to destroy you, he has the resources to make it happen. But if you're married to me," he smiled, "well, no one touches what's mine." Serena's pulse hammered in her ears. This was insane. She barely knew this man, didn't trust him, didn't understand his motivations beyond some vague enjoyment of watching powerful men fall. But he was right. Adrian would come after her, and she didn't have the infrastructure to fight him off forever. "This isn't a romance," she said carefully. "I'm aware. It's a business arrangement." "Exactly. And what do you get out of it?" Lucien's smile sharpened. The satisfaction of watching Adrian Locke realize he didn't just lose his wife, he lost to her. Serena stood, her legs steadier than she expected. She looked out at the harbor, at the boats drifting across the water like toys. Everything about this felt wrong, reckless, like stepping off a cliff with no idea if there was ground below. But she'd already stepped off one cliff when she left Adrian. This was just another fall. "I need time to think," she said. "Take all the time you need, but not too much." Lucien's voice was soft, almost gentle. "The clock is ticking, Ms. Vale, and Adrian's getting closer." Marcus Hale found this trail 3 days later. It wasn't much, just a name buried in a subsidiary contract, a signature on a document filed in a language Adrian didn't speak. But it was enough. He called Adrian at 7 in the morning, his voice tight with something Adrian couldn't quite identify. "I found the owner of Vale Strategies." Adrian's heart lurched. "Who?" "It's buried under 6 shell companies, but I traced it back. The primary stakeholder is listed as S. Harmon." "S. Harmon? Who the hell is that?" "It's an alias, but I ran it through every database I have access to, and I found a connection. S. Harmon is registered to the same address as your ex-wife's apartment in Europe." Adrian's world tilted. The phone slipped in his hand, and he had to grip it tighter to keep from dropping it. "What?" "It's Serena. She's behind Vale Strategies. She's been dismantling your company piece by piece for the past 4 months." Adrian couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room spun around him, the walls closing in. "That's impossible," he said, his voice hoarse. "She doesn't have the resources. She doesn't... I'm telling you what I found." Whether you believe it or not is up to you. Marcus hung up, and Adrian stood there in his empty penthouse, staring at nothing. Serena. Serena. The woman he'd dismissed as irrelevant, the woman he'd thought would fade into obscurity. She was destroying him. He threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered, pieces scattering across the floor like shrapnel. His chest heaved, his hands shook. He wanted to scream, wanted to hit something, wanted to... His landline rang. He almost didn't answer it, but some part of him, the part that still clung to control, made him pick up. What? Mr. Locke, this is Gerald Strauss. We need to talk. Gerald Strauss, one of Adrian's oldest investors, a man who'd been with Locke Enterprises since the beginning. What is it, Gerald? I'm pulling my investment, effective immediately. Adrian's blood ran cold. You can't do that. We have a contract. I'm invoking the instability clause. Your company's performance has declined significantly over the past quarter. I'm within my rights. Gerald, don't do this. Whatever you've heard, this isn't personal, Adrian. It's business. The line went dead. Adrian slammed the receiver down so hard the plastic cracked. His vision blurred. His pulse roared in his ears. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't... His assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Locke, Paul's here. He says it's urgent. Adrian wanted to tell her to send him away, wanted to lock the door and never come out. Instead, he said, "Let him in." Paul looked worse than before. His tie was gone. His shirt was untucked. He looked like a man who'd been awake for days. 3 more investors just pulled out, Paul said without preamble. And the board is calling for an emergency meeting. They want answers, Adrian, and I don't have any to give them. Adrian sank into his chair. His empire, everything he'd built, everything he'd taken from Serena and claimed as his own, was collapsing, and she was the one holding the hammer. She's doing this, he said quietly. Who? Serena, my ex-wife. She's behind Veil Strategies. Paul's face went pale. Are you sure? Marcus traced it back to her. She's been orchestrating this whole thing. Paul sat down heavily, his hands trembling. Jesus Christ, how? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Adrian stood, his jaw set. And then I'm going to bury her. Serena said yes to Lucien on a Thursday. She didn't overthink it, didn't agonize. She just looked at the evidence Marcus had sent Lucien, evidence that Adrian now knew she was behind Veil Strategies, and made the calculation. Alone, she was vulnerable. With Lucien, she was untouchable. They married in a private ceremony with no guests, no flowers, no pretense of romance. Just 2 people signing a contract that would change everything. Lucien slipped a ring onto her finger, a simple platinum band that felt heavier than it should. Serena looked at it and thought about the ring Adrian had given her 7 years ago, a gaudy diamond she'd pawned the day after the divorce. This one felt different, like a weapon. Congratulations, Mrs. Drax, Lucien said, his voice dry. Serena looked up at him. Don't call me that. It's your name now. It's a title, not an identity. Lucien smiled. Fair enough. They had dinner that night, another silent, efficient meal where business was discussed with the same detachment as the weather. Lucien told her about his network, the reach of his influence, the people who owed him favors. Serena listened, filing away every name, every connection, every opportunity. Adrian will retaliate, Lucien said, cutting into his steak. Now that he knows it's you, he'll come after you directly. I know. Are you ready for that? Serena met his eyes. I've been ready since the day he told me I was replaceable. Lucien's smile was sharp. Good, because it's about to get ugly. What? Adrian flew to Europe 2 weeks later. He didn't tell anyone where he was going, didn't bring security or lawyers or anyone who might talk him out of it. He just booked a first-class ticket and landed in the coastal city where Marcus had tracked Serena. He took a cab to her address, a modest apartment building near the waterfront, and stood outside like a stalker, waiting. She appeared at noon, walking out of the building with a bag slung over her shoulder. She looked different, thinner, maybe, sharper. Her hair was shorter, her clothes simpler, but it was her. Unmistakably her. Adrian's chest tightened. He stepped forward, blocking her path. Serena. She stopped. Her face didn't change, didn't register surprise or fear or anything. She just looked at him like he was a stranger. Adrian? We need to talk. No, we don't. She moved to step around him, but he grabbed her arm. Not hard, just enough to stop her. Don't touch me, she said, her voice ice. He let go immediately, his hands rising. I know what you're doing. I know about veil strategies. Good for you. Serena, this is insane. You're destroying my company. Your company. She laughed, a cold, brittle sound. That's rich. What the hell is that supposed to mean? It means you built that company on my work, my ideas, my sleepless nights while you took credit in board meetings. Her eyes burned into his. It was never yours, Adrian. You just convinced everyone it was. Adrian's jaw clenched. That's not true. Isn't it? The automation algorithm that put you on the map? Who developed that? The client acquisition strategy that tripled your revenue in year 2? Who designed that? The investor pitch that got you your first 10 million? Who wrote that? Adrian said nothing. Because she was right, and they both knew it. You erased me, Serena continued, her voice shaking now. You took everything I built and put your name on it, and then you threw me away like I was nothing. I gave you a settlement. You gave me scraps. She stepped closer, her face inches from his. But that's okay, because now I'm taking everything, not just the company, not just the money, everything. Adrian's heart pounded. You can't do this. Watch me. She turned and walked away, her step steady, her head high. Adrian stood there, frozen, watching her disappear into the crowd. His hands were shaking, his throat was tight. He'd come here to scare her, to remind her who he was, who she was. But standing there in the middle of a foreign city, watching the woman he'd dismissed as irrelevant walk away from him without a backward glance, Adrian Locke realized something that made his blood run cold. He'd already lost. Yishach. Serena didn't go back to her apartment. She went straight to Lucian's office, her hands trembling so badly she had to shove them in her pockets. The confrontation with Adrian had rattled her more than she wanted to admit. Seeing his face, hearing his voice, it brought everything back, the humiliation, the anger, the years of being invisible. Lucien looked up when she entered, his expression unreadable. He found you, he said. Not a question. He knows. And I told him the truth. Serena sank into a chair, her legs weak. He's going to fight back. Hard. Let him. Lucien stood, moving around his desk to stand beside her. You're not alone anymore, Serena. He can't touch you. You don't know Adrian. He doesn't lose. He'll do whatever it takes. So will we. Serena looked up at him. Lucien's face was calm, controlled, but there was something in his eyes, something dark and unyielding that reminded her why people feared him. What are you suggesting? She asked. That we stop playing defense. It's time to end this. He paused. I want to show you something. He led her to a conference room she'd never seen before, its walls lined with screens displaying documents, contracts, photographs. Serena's breath caught. It was a map of Adrian's entire empire, every asset, every investment, every vulnerability. I've been building this since the day we met, Lucien said. Adrian Locke thinks he's untouchable. But everyone has a pressure point. We just need to find his. Serena stared at the screens, her pulse quickening. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was war. What's the plan? She asked. Lucien smiled. We take everything he has, and then we take him. Adrian returned to his penthouse to find Paul waiting for him. Where the hell have you been? Paul demanded. The board is threatening a vote of no confidence. Investors are fleeing. The stock price dropped another 12% today. Adrian poured himself a drink. His hands were steady now, cold. I went to see Serena. Paul's face went white. You did what? I confronted her, told her I knew what she was doing. And she admitted it, all of it. Adrian drained his glass. She's coming for me, Paul, and she's not going to stop until I have nothing. Paul sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. Jesus Christ, Adrian, what did you do to her? I divorced her. That's it. That's it? Paul looked up, his eyes blazing. You stole her work for 7 years, took credit for everything she built, and then threw her away the second you didn't need her anymore. You didn't just divorce her, you erased her. Adrian's jaw clenched. Whose side are you on? I'm on the side of not losing everything we've worked for. Paul stood, his voice rising. This is your fault, Adrian. You created this, and now we're all going to pay for it. Get out. What? Get out. Paul stared at him for a long moment, then grabbed his coat and left, slamming the door behind him. Adrian stood alone in his penthouse, the city lights blinking below him like dying stars. He thought about Serena's face when she'd looked at him today. The cold fury in her eyes, the certainty. She wasn't bluffing, she was going to destroy him. And for the first time in his life, Adrian Locke didn't know how to stop it. But the final blow came 3 weeks later. Serena and Lucien moved simultaneously, hitting Adrian from every angle. Lucien Neshpatse's network of lawyers filed a lawsuit alleging intellectual property theft, claiming Adrian had built Locke Enterprises on stolen work. At the same time, Vale Strategies executed a hostile takeover bid, leveraging the company's plummeting stock price to buy up controlling shares. The board panicked, investors scattered, clients terminated contracts en masse. Within 72 hours, Adrian lost operational control of his own company. He sat in his office, soon to be someone else's office, staring at the termination notice. The words blurred together, effective immediately. Transition of leadership. Adrian Locke relieved of duties. His phone rang. He didn't answer it. It rang again. And again. Finally, he picked up. Mr. Locke? It was his assistant, her voice shaking. There's someone here to see you. She says it's important. Who? Serena Vale. Adrian's heart stopped. Tell her. But the door opened before he could finish. Serena walked in, and she wasn't alone. Lucien Drax stood beside her, a man Adrian had heard of but never met. A ghost in expensive suits who ran half the city's underground and the other half of its legitimate power structure. Serena looked at Adrian, and for the first time since the courtroom, she smiled. Hello, Adrian, she said. Adrian couldn't speak, couldn't move. Lucien stepped forward, placing a folder on the desk. Mr. Locke, we're here to discuss terms. Terms? Adrian's voice cracked. For your surrender, Serena said. You have two choices. You can fight this and lose everything, your reputation, your freedom, your future. Or you can sign over your remaining shares, accept a settlement, and disappear quietly. Adrian stared at her, at the woman he'd once controlled, owned, erased. You can't do this, he whispered. I already have. Lucien opened the folder, revealing documents Adrian recognized immediately. Contracts, emails, proof of every idea he'd stolen, every contribution he'd claimed as his own. 7 years of theft documented in excruciating detail. Sign, Lucien said, sliding a pen across the desk, or we release this to every media outlet in the country. Your choice. Adrian's hands shook, his vision blurred. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't, but it was. And as he looked into Serena's eyes, cold, victorious, utterly without mercy, Adrian Locke finally understood what he'd created. Not a victim, a reckoning. Adrian's hand hovered over the pen. His fingers twitched, refusing to obey the simplest command his brain could give. Sign. Just sign and make this end. But his body rejected the idea like poison, every muscle locked in rebellion against the inevitable. Serena stood perfectly still across the desk, her face a mask of controlled satisfaction. Lucien Drax waited beside her, patient as death itself, his dark eyes tracking every micro-expression that flickered across Adrian's face. You have 60 seconds, Lucien said quietly. After that, we walk out, and by tomorrow morning, every journalist in the country will have a copy of what's in that folder. Adrian's throat closed. He looked down at the documents, page after page, of his own emails, meeting notes, contracts with Serena's name carefully whited out and replaced with his. 7 years of systematic erasure, all compiled into a weapon that would destroy him more thoroughly than any bankruptcy ever could. I made you, Adrian said, his voice barely a whisper. I gave you opportunities. You stole from me, Serena cut in, her voice like a blade. Every presentation I wrote, every algorithm I developed, every client relationship I built. You put your name on it and told the world you were a genius, and I let you. Do you know why? Adrian said nothing. Because I believed you when you said we were partners, that we were building something together. Her laugh was sharp, humorless. I was so goddamn stupid. Serena, sign the papers, Adrian. His hand moved, not because he wanted it to, but because there was nothing left to do. He scrawled his signature across the bottom of the first page, then the second, then the third. Each stroke of the pen felt like cutting off a piece of himself. When he finished, he dropped the pen and sat back, his chest hollow. Lucien gathered the documents with efficient, practiced movements, sliding them back into the folder. "Congratulations, Mr. Locke. You're officially irrelevant." They turned to leave, and Adrian found his voice, ragged and desperate. "Was it worth it? Destroying everything we built?" Serena paused at the door. When she looked back, her eyes held something Adrian couldn't quite identify. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Something colder. "We didn't build anything, Adrian. I did. You just took credit for it." She tilted her head slightly. "And yes, it was worth every second." The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot. Adrian sat alone in the office that was no longer his, staring at the city that had once belonged to him. His phone buzzed incessantly. Messages from Paul, from board members, from journalists who'd somehow already gotten wind of the takeover. He didn't read any of them, didn't move, didn't breathe. He'd lost everything. And the worst part, the part that made bile rise in his throat, was that he'd deserved it. Serena didn't celebrate. She walked out of that building with Lucien beside her, climbed into the back of his car, and stared out the window as the city scrolled past. She'd won. Adrian was finished. Everything she'd worked toward for the past 6 months had come to fruition exactly as planned. So why did she feel so empty? "You're quiet," Lucien observed, his voice cutting through her thoughts. "I'm fine." "You just destroyed the man who tried to erase you. Most people would be euphoric." Serena's jaw tightened. "I'm not most people." Lucien studied her for a moment, then nodded. "No, you're not." The car pulled up to Lucien's building, a sleek tower of glass and steel that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They rode the elevator to the penthouse in silence. Serena had been staying here since the wedding, occupying a guest suite that was larger than her entire apartment had been. Everything about Lucien's world was excessive, controlled, designed to intimidate. She'd thought she could handle it, thought she could compartmentalize the arrangement, keep it purely transactional. But the longer she stayed, the more she felt the walls closing in. "We need to discuss next steps," Lucien said, pouring himself a drink in the sprawling living room. "Adrian signed over his shares, but there are still board members loyal to him. We'll need to replace them before they cause problems." "Already handled," Serena said, pulling out her tablet. "I have a list of candidates, all vetted, all willing to support new leadership." Lucien's eyebrow arched. "Efficient. That's what you wanted, isn't it? Efficiency?" Something flickered in Lucien's expression, something too quick for Serena to catch. "Among other things." She set down the tablet, suddenly tired. "What do you want from me, Lucien?" "I thought we established that. I want to watch Adrian Locke fall. He's already fallen, so what now?" Lucien took a slow sip of his drink, his eyes never leaving hers. "Now you rebuild. Take Locke Enterprises and turn it into something that can't be stolen, something that carries your name, not his." "And you?" "I'll do what I do, protect my investments." He paused. "Protect my wife." The word landed heavy between them. Wife. It still felt wrong in Serena's mouth, like a costume that didn't quite fit. She'd married Lucien for protection, for resources, for revenge. But standing here in his sterile penthouse, watching him watch her with that unreadable expression, she wondered if she'd traded one cage for another. "I'm going to bed," she said abruptly. Lucien nodded. "Good night, Serena." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "You did well today. I hope you know that." Serena didn't respond. She just walked to her suite, closed the door, and stood in the darkness, trying to remember what winning was supposed to feel like. Adrian spent the next 3 days drunk. Not elegantly drunk. The kind of controlled drinking that happened at business dinners. Messy drunk. The kind where he woke up on the floor of his penthouse with no memory of how he got there, his phone dead, his mouth tasting like copper and regret. On the 4th day, someone knocked on his door. Adrian ignored it. The knocking continued, insistent, relentless. Finally, he dragged himself upright and stumbled to the entrance. When he opened the door, Paul stood there, looking like he'd aged a decade. Jesus Christ, Paul muttered, taking in Adrian's appearance. You look like hell. Thanks for the observation. What do you want? To talk. Can I come in? Adrian stepped aside, too exhausted to argue. Paul walked into the penthouse, his nose wrinkling at the smell, stale alcohol and unwashed despair. He moved to the windows, pulling open the curtains. Light flooded the room, making Adrian wince. Stop, Adrian croaked. Close them. No. Paul turned to face him, his expression hard. You need to see what you've become. I know what I've become. I don't need you to tell me. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're feeling sorry for yourself instead of doing something about this. Adrian laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Doing something? She took everything, Paul. There's nothing left to do. There's always something. Paul pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages. I've been digging into veil strategies, into Lucian Drax, and I found something. Adrian's pulse quickened despite himself. What? Drax isn't just connected. He's dangerous. His network runs through half the criminal infrastructure in Europe, plus money laundering, extortion. There are rumors of worse. Paul's eyes locked on Adrian's. If Serena's married to him, she's in over her head, and if we can prove his operations are illegal, then what? Adrian cut in. We take him down and Serena gets caught in the crossfire? That's your plan? She destroyed your company, Adrian. She took back what was hers. The words came out before Adrian could stop them. He sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. Everything she said was true. I stole her work, put my name on it, convinced myself I deserved the credit because I was the one willing to fight for it. Paul stared at him. You're defending her? I'm admitting the truth. Something I should have done years ago. So what? You're just going to roll over? Let her win? Adrian looked up, his eyes bloodshot but clear. She already won, Paul, and maybe she should have. Paul's face twisted with disgust. I can't believe what I'm hearing. The Adrian Locke I knew would never... The Adrian Locke you knew was a fraud. Adrian stood, his legs unsteady. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can move on. Paul stood there for a long moment, then shook his head. You know what? Fine. Wallow in your self-pity, but don't call me when you finally grow a spine. He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. Adrian stood alone in his penthouse, the last piece of his empire he hadn't lost yet, and wondered how much longer even that would last. Motit. Serena discovered the first discrepancy on a Tuesday. She was reviewing financial reports for Locke Enterprises, her company now, though the name still made her skin crawl, when something caught her eye. A series of transactions routed through offshore accounts, not illegal on their own. But the pattern was familiar. Too familiar. She pulled up another file, then another. The more she looked, the more the picture clarified. Money moving in and out of the company in carefully orchestrated waves, always just below the threshold that would trigger regulatory scrutiny. It was the same pattern Veil Strategies had used. Serena's stomach dropped. She grabbed her phone and called Lucian. I need to see you, now. 20 minutes later, she was in his office. The report spread across his desk. Explain this, she said, her voice tight. Lucien glanced at the documents, his expression unchanging. Explain what? These transactions. They're structured exactly like the ones we used to drain Adrian's resources. But these are dated from before I even started Veil Strategies. She leaned forward, her pulse hammering. Before I even met you. Lucian sat back in his chair, his fingers steepled. I'm impressed. I didn't think you'd notice. The words hit like a physical blow. You were already targeting Adrian. Of course I was. Why? Because men like Adrian Locke are a disease. They take what isn't theirs, rebrand it, and call themselves visionaries. I've been dismantling his empire for over a year. Serena's mind raced. Then why did you approach me? Why the marriage, the protection? Because you made it easier. Lucian's smile was cold. You had motive, access, a personal vendetta that made the whole operation look like revenge instead of business. You were the perfect cover. The air left Serena's lungs. She sank into a chair, her hands shaking. You used me. We used each other. Don't pretend you married me out of affection. I married you for protection, and I gave it to you. Everything I promised, I delivered. Lucien stood, moving to the window. Adrian's finished. You're safe. Veil Strategies is now a legitimate acquisition firm with you as the public face. Everyone wins. Except I'm still in a cage. Lucian turned, his eyes sharp. What did you expect, Serena? Freedom? There's no such thing. You traded one set of chains for another. The only difference is these chains come with power. Serena stood, her legs unsteady. I want out. Out of what? The marriage? The company? All of it. Lucien's laugh was soft, almost pitying. You can't get out. You're in too deep. Your name is on every contract, every acquisition. If this operation falls apart, you go down with it. You're blackmailing me. I'm stating facts. He crossed the room, stopping inches from her. You wanted revenge, and I gave it to you. But revenge has a price, and now you're paying it. Serena's hands curled into fists. She wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, but she knew it wouldn't change anything. Lucien had outplayed her from the beginning. She'd thought she was using him, but he'd been using her all along. I need air, she said, her voice hollow. Take all the air you need. But don't do anything stupid, Serena. We're partners now, whether you like it or not. She left his office, her mind spinning. The hallway stretched before her like a tunnel, the walls pressing in. She made it to the elevator before her legs gave out. She leaned against the wall, gasping, trying to breathe. She'd destroyed Adrian, taken everything he had, and in the process, she'd handed herself over to someone worse. Okay, Adrian received the call at midnight. He was half asleep on the couch, an empty bottle on the floor beside him when his phone buzzed. He almost didn't answer, but the number was familiar, one he hadn't seen in months. Hello? Adrian, it's me. The voice hit him like ice water. Serena. He sat up, his heart pounding. What do you want? I need to meet with you. Why the hell would I? Because we're both in trouble. And if we don't work together, we're both going down. Adrian's jaw clenched. I don't believe you. You don't have to believe me. Just meet me. Tomorrow, noon, the cafe on 5th and Lexington. She paused. Come alone, and don't tell anyone. The line went dead. Adrian stared at his phone, his mind racing. This had to be a trap. Another move in whatever game Serena and Lucien were playing. But the desperation in her voice had sounded real, raw. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. The cafe was crowded when Adrian arrived. He spotted Serena immediately, sitting in a corner booth, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. She looked different, tired. Her eyes darted to the door every few seconds, like she expected someone to burst in. Adrian slid into the seat across from her. This better be good. Lucien's been targeting you for over a year, Serena said without preamble. Before I even started Veil Strategies. Before the divorce. He was already dismantling your company. Adrian's stomach twisted. What? He used me. Made me think I was the architect of your downfall, but he'd already laid the groundwork. I was just the distraction. Her voice cracked. He played me, Adrian, the same way you did. Adrian sat back, his mind reeling. Why are you telling me this? Because he's not going to stop with you. Lucien doesn't just destroy companies, he absorbs them. And now that I'm legally tied to him, I'm complicit in everything he does. She leaned forward, her eyes desperate. I thought I was getting revenge, but I just traded one monster for another. So what? You want my sympathy? I want your help. Adrian laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. You're insane. I have evidence. Documents proving Lucien's criminal operations, money laundering, fraud, enough to bring him down. She paused. But I can't use it alone. He'll know it came from me and he'll destroy me before I can act. Then you're screwed. We're both screwed, unless we work together. Adrian stared at her. The woman who'd taken everything from him was now asking for his help. The irony was almost funny. Almost. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only person who knows what it's like to be destroyed by someone you trusted. Serena's voice was quiet. And because if we don't stop Lucien, neither of us will survive this. Adrian's hands trembled. Every instinct told him to walk away, to let Serena drown in the mess she'd created. But another part of him, the part that still remembered who she'd been before he broke her, wanted to believe her. What's your plan? He asked finally. Serena's eyes met his, and for the first time since the courtroom, he saw something other than hatred in them. Hope, Baz. They spent the next 2 weeks building a case. Serena provided the evidence, financial records, emails, transaction logs that proved Lucien's network extended far beyond legitimate business. Adrian used his remaining contacts to verify the information, quietly reaching out to journalists and prosecutors who might be willing to act. It was dangerous. Lucien's people were everywhere, and if he found out what they were doing, they'd both be dead. Serena moved out of the penthouse, claiming she needed space to finalize the Locke Enterprises transition. Lucien didn't argue. He seemed almost amused by her sudden independence, like he was watching a mouse try to escape a maze he'd designed. "Be careful," he'd said when she left. "The world is dangerous for women on their own." The threat was clear. Serena met Adrian in secret. Abandoned parking garages, empty parks, hotel rooms rented under fake names. They worked in tense silence, their shared history hanging between them like a wall. But slowly, grudgingly, they began to remember how to work as a team. "I'm sorry," Adrian said one night, the words falling out before he could stop them. Serena looked up from her laptop. "What?" "For everything. For stealing your work. For making you invisible. For—" His voice broke. "For being the reason you ended up with someone like Lucien." Serena's expression was unreadable. "You don't get to apologize now." "I know, but I'm saying it anyway." She turned back to her screen, but Adrian saw her hands shake. "It doesn't change anything." "I know." They worked in silence after that. But something had shifted. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just the faint acknowledgement that they'd both been broken by the same machinery. The plan fell apart on a Thursday. Serena arrived at their meeting spot, a dingy motel on the outskirts of the city, to find Adrian already there, his face pale. "We have a problem," he said. "What kind of problem?" Adrian pulled out his phone, showing her a message. "I know what you're doing. Stop now, or everyone you care about dies." The sender was unlisted, but they both knew who it was. "He's bluffing," Serena said, but her voice shook. "Is he? You know what he's capable of." Serena's mind raced. If Lucien knew they were working together, he'd already moved to counter them, which meant the evidence they'd gathered was either compromised or useless. "We need to move faster," she said. Get everything to the prosecutors before he can—" Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. "Lucien." Adrian grabbed her wrist. "Don't answer it. I have to. If I don't, he'll know something's wrong." She answered, her voice steady. "Hello? Serena." Lucien's voice was calm. Too calm. "I think we need to have a conversation. Come home." "I'm in the middle of— Now." The line went dead. Serena and Adrian stared at each other. "You can't go back there," Adrian said. "It's a trap. If I don't, he'll come looking for me. And he'll find you too." "Then we go to the police, right now. Give them everything we have." "It's not enough. Not yet. We need more time." "We don't have more time." Serena stood, her decision made. "I have to go. Keep working on the case. If I'm not back in 2 hours, take everything to the district attorney." "Serena." "Promise me, Adrian." He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same determination that had once built an empire, the same strength he'd tried so hard to bury. "I promise," he said quietly. Serena walked out of the motel room, climbed into her car, and drove toward the tower of glass and steel where Lucien waited. She knew it was a trap. She went anyway. Because if there was one thing Serena Vale had learned, it was this: sometimes the only way out was through. Jan. The penthouse was dark when Serena arrived. No lights, no sounds, just shadows pooling in corners. "Lucien?" she called, her voice echoing. "In here." She followed his voice to the living room. Lucien sat in a leather chair, a glass of scotch in his hand, his expression unreadable. "Sit," he said. Serena remained standing. "What do you want?" "I want to know why my wife is meeting secretly with her ex-husband." His voice was soft, dangerous. "And I want to know what you're planning." "I don't know what you're Don't lie to me." Lucien set down his glass and stood, closing the distance between them. "I have people everywhere, Serena. Eyes in places you can't imagine. Did you really think you could move against me without me knowing?" Serena's heart hammered, but she kept her face blank. "I'm not moving against you." "Then what are you doing?" "Tying up loose ends." making sure Adrian doesn't cause problems. Lucian studied her, his eyes cold. Then he smiled, a terrible, knowing smile. You're lying, but I'll give you one chance to tell me the truth. What did you give Adrian? Nothing. Wrong answer. He moved so fast Serena didn't have time to react. One moment he was standing in front of her. The next, his hand was around her throat, slamming her against the wall. Not hard enough to hurt, just hard enough to terrify. I'll ask you one more time, Lucian said, his voice barely above a whisper. What did you give him? Serena's vision blurred. She clawed at his hand, gasping. Nothing, I swear. Lucian held her there for another agonizing second, then released her. Serena collapsed to the floor, coughing. You disappoint me, Lucian said, stepping back. I thought you were smarter than this. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Send them in. The door opened. 2 men entered, large, expressionless, the kind of people who hurt others for a living. Take her to the estate, Lucian said. Make sure she doesn't leave until I say so. Serena's blood turned to ice. Lucian, please. You made your choice, Serena. Now you live with it. The men grabbed her arms, hauling her to her feet. Serena struggled, but they were too strong. They dragged her toward the elevator as Lucian watched, his expression carved from stone. Wait, Serena screamed. Lucien, please. I'll do whatever you want. Lucien didn't respond. He just picked up his scotch and turned away, dismissing her like she was nothing. The elevator doors closed, and Serena realized, with a clarity that made her want to vomit, that she'd made the same mistake twice. She'd trusted the wrong man, and this time there might not be a way out. The estate was 2 hours outside the city, buried in countryside that looked picturesque in daylight and menacing at night. Serena watched through the car window as trees blurred past, her wrists zip-tied together, her mind calculating distances and exits that didn't exist. The 2 men who'd grabbed her sat in front, silent as corpses. One drove. The other cleaned his fingernails with a knife that caught the passing streetlights. Her phone was gone. Lucien's people had taken it the moment they'd shoved her into the car. She didn't know if Adrian had noticed she was missing yet, didn't know if he'd keep his promise to take the evidence to the district attorney if she didn't return, didn't know if any of it mattered anymore. The car turned onto a gravel road, tires crunching over stones. A mansion emerged from the darkness, sprawling, isolated, surrounded by nothing but forest and silence. The kind of place where people disappeared and no one ever found them. They dragged Serena out of the car. She stumbled, her legs numb from sitting too long, and one of the men caught her arm with bruising force. Walk, he grunted. She walked. Through the front door, down a hallway lined with art too expensive to be real, into a room with stone walls and a single chair bolted to the floor. They shoved her into it, securing her wrist to the armrest with metal cuffs that bit into her skin. Lucien will be here soon, the knife cleaner said. Don't try anything stupid. They left, locking the door behind them. Serena sat in the silence, her pulse hammering in her ears. The room smelled like mildew and something metallic that made her stomach turn. She tested the cuffs, solid, unmoving. Tested the chair, same. Her breathing quickened, panic crawling up her throat like insects. She forced it down. Panic wouldn't help. She needed to think, needed to... The door opened. Lucian walked in, still wearing the same suit from the penthouse. Not a hair out of place. He looked at her the way someone might look at a broken appliance, mildly irritated, already considering replacements. I gave you everything, he said, closing the door. Protection. Resources. A way to destroy the man who erased you. And this is how you repay me? Serena met his eyes. You lied to me. I omitted details. There's a difference. You used me as a cover for your own operation. And you used me for revenge. We're even. Lucian pulled up a chair, sitting across from her. But then you got greedy. Started digging where you shouldn't, planning things with Adrian that could hurt us both. There is no us, Lucien. There never was. His smile was cold. You're wrong about that. We're married, remember? Legally bound. Which means everything you do reflects on me, and I can't have my wife conspiring against me. So what? You're going to kill me? Kill you? No, that would be wasteful. Lucian leaned forward, his voice dropping. I'm going to remind you of your place, and then you're going to go back to the city, smile for the cameras, and run Locke Enterprises exactly as I tell you. No more meetings with Adrian, no more gathering evidence. No more thinking you're anything other than what you are, a tool. Serena's jaw clenched. And if I refuse? Then Adrian dies. Paul dies. Anyone you've ever cared about dies. And you get to live with that knowledge locked in a room just like this one for the rest of your very long life. He stood, brushing invisible dust from his sleeve. Your choice. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. I'll give you the night to think about it. By morning, I expect the right answer. The door closed. The lock clicked. Serena sat in the darkness, her heart pounding so hard she thought her ribs might crack. She pulled at the cuffs until her wrists bled, until exhaustion made her arms shake. Nothing. She was trapped, completely, utterly trapped. And Adrian had no idea where she was. Stressing. Adrian checked his watch for the 15th time. 3 hours. Serena had been gone for 3 hours. He paced the motel room like a caged animal, his phone clutched in his hand. He'd called her 17 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. He'd texted. Nothing. She disappeared completely. God damn it, he muttered, running his hands through his hair. God damn it, Serena. He grabbed the folder of evidence they'd compiled. Financial records, emails, transaction logs that proved Lucian Drax was running a criminal empire behind the facade of legitimate business. It was good, solid, enough to get investigators interested, but it wasn't enough to take down Lucian. Not without Serena's testimony. Not without her alive to corroborate the evidence. Adrian's hands shook. He'd promised her he'd go to the authorities if she didn't come back. But if he did that now, if he exposed Lucian before finding Serena, Lucian would kill her. Adrian knew that with the certainty of a man who'd spent years around predators. He needed help, real help. Adrian scrolled through his contacts, stopped on a name he hadn't called in years. Marcus Hale, the investigator who'd found Serena in Europe, the man who knew how to dig up dirt that stayed buried. He dialed. Marcus answered on the third ring. Locke, didn't expect to hear from you again. I need your help. I don't work for you anymore, remember? You fired me when I'll pay you triple your rate, cash, but I need you now. A pause. What's the job? Finding someone who was taken by Lucian Drax. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Adrian thought the line had gone dead. Marcus? You're insane, Marcus said finally. You want me to go after Lucian Drax? Do you have any idea what that man is capable of? I have some idea, but the person he took is... Adrian's voice cracked. It's Serena, my ex-wife. Another pause. I thought you hated her. I did. I do. I don't know. Adrian pressed his palm against his forehead. But she's in danger because of me. Because we were working together to expose Lucian, and he found out. If she dies, it's my fault. Working together? Marcus's voice sharpened. What the hell have you gotten yourself into? I'll explain everything. Just, can you help me find her? Marcus exhaled slowly. I'll need everything you have on Drax. Locations, associates, properties, and I'll need 72 hours. She might not have 72 hours. Then you better start praying she does, because rushing into this blind will get us all killed. Adrian closed his eyes. Fine, 72 hours. But Marcus, if you find her and she's hurt, I'll do everything I can. That's all I can promise. The line went dead. Adrian sank onto the bed, the folder of evidence heavy in his hands. 3 days. He had to keep Lucian distracted for 3 days while Marcus worked, which meant Adrian needed to do something reckless, something that would pull Lucian's attention away from Serena long enough to give her a chance. He opened his laptop and started typing. Serena woke to someone shaking her shoulder. She jerked awake, her neck screaming from the angle she'd fallen asleep at, still cuffed to the chair. One of Lucian's men stood over her, the driver, his face expressionless. Boss wants to see you, he said. He uncuffed her wrists, and Serena nearly collapsed. Her hands were numb, her shoulders burning. The man hauled her upright, half dragging her out of the stone room and up a flight of stairs. Morning light streamed through windows, making her eyes water. They brought her to a dining room. Lucian sat at the head of a long table. Eating breakfast like this was a normal day. Eggs, toast, coffee. The sight of food made Serena's stomach clench. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. Sit, Lucian said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Serena sat, her legs barely holding her. The guard stood behind her, a silent threat. Lucien cut into his eggs with surgical precision. Have you thought about my offer? It wasn't an offer, it was a threat. Semantics. He took a bite, chewed slowly. So what's your answer? Serena's throat was dry as sand. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to spit in his face, to fight. But she thought about Adrian, about Paul, about everyone who would die if she said no. I'll do what you want, she said quietly. Lucien smiled. Good. I knew you'd see reason. But I have one condition. The smile faded. You're not in a position to make conditions. Let Adrian go. Whatever evidence we gathered, it dies with me. But you leave him alone. Lucien set down his fork, his eyes cold. You care about him. I care about keeping my word. How noble. Lucien leaned back in his chair. Unfortunately, Adrian's made that impossible. Serena's blood turned to ice. What did he do? Lucien pulled out his phone, tapping the screen. He turned it to face her. The headline made her heart stop. Tech mogul Adrian Locke accuses Lucien Drax of criminal conspiracy. Below it was a photo of Adrian standing outside a courthouse, his face haggard but determined. The article detailed allegations of money laundering, fraud, extortion, everything they'd compiled laid bare for the world to see. He went public, Lucien said, his voice dangerously soft. 3 hours ago. Every major news outlet is running the story. The district attorney's office has already opened an investigation. Serena couldn't breathe. He wasn't supposed to. He broke our agreement, which means I break mine. Lucien stood, buttoning his jacket. Adrian Locke is a dead man, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Lucien, please take her back to the room, Lucien told the guard, and make sure she stays there until I decide what to do with her. The guard grabbed Serena's arm, but she wrenched free, lunging across the table. Her hand closed around a knife, small, serrated, meant for butter. She swung it at Lucien, aiming for his throat. He caught her wrist effortlessly, twisting until the knife clattered to the floor. Serena screamed, more in rage than pain, and drove her knee toward his groin. Lucien shifted, taking the blow on his thigh, and backhanded her across the face. Serena hit the floor hard, her vision exploding in stars. Blood filled her mouth. The guard hauled her upright, and this time when they dragged her away, she didn't fight. Couldn't. Her body was done. But her mind was still working. Adrian had forced Lucien's hand, which meant Lucien would move against him soon. Maybe today. Maybe in the next hour. And Serena was trapped here, useless, while the only person who'd tried to help her walked into a death trap. Unless she found a way out. Adrian stood in front of the courthouse, cameras flashing, microphones shoved in his face. Every journalist in the city had shown up. The story was too big to ignore. A disgraced tech mogul accusing one of the city's most powerful men of running a criminal empire. Mr. Locke, do you have proof of these allegations? Someone shouted. Yes. I've submitted a full dossier to the district attorney. Financial records, transaction logs, witness testimony. Everything needed to build a case. Why come forward now? Because Lucien Drax is dangerous, and if someone doesn't stop him, more people will get hurt. Is it true your ex-wife is married to Drax? Adrian's jaw tightened. No comment. He pushed through the crowd, climbing into a car waiting at the curb. Marcus sat in the driver's seat, his expression grim. You just painted a target on your back, Marcus said. I know. Drax will come after you, today. Maybe in the next few hours. Good. That's what I'm counting on. Marcus pulled into traffic, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. This is insane, Adrian. You're using yourself as bait. It's the only way to draw him out. If Lucien's focused on me, he's not focused on Serena. And if he kills you, then you make sure the DA uses the evidence to put him away. Adrian looked out the window, the city blurring past. Did you find anything on Serena's location? Maybe. Drax owns several properties outside the city. I've narrowed it down to 3 possibles, but I need more time to... We don't have more time. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face going pale. What? Adrian demanded. One of my contacts just sent me a tip. Lucien's people are mobilizing, multiple vehicles heading into the city. They're coming for you. Adrian's pulse spiked. How long? An hour. Maybe less. Then we move now. give me the address of the most likely location. Adrian, give me the address. Marcus rattled off coordinates. Adrian pulled out his phone, typing them into GPS 40 minutes away, in the opposite direction of the city. Drop me at the next corner, Adrian said. What? No, you'll never make it. I don't need to make it. I just need to get close enough. Adrian met Marcus's eyes. If Lucian's coming for me, he's leaving that estate less guarded. That's our window. Our window? I'm not going with you. Yes, you are. Because you're the only person I trust to help me get Serena out. Marcus stared at him for a long moment, then cursed under his breath. You're going to get us both killed. Probably. Marcus jerked the wheel, turning the car around. Fine. But if we survive this, you're paying me for a year, not triple rate, a full goddamn year. Deal. They drove in tense silence, the city falling away behind them. Trees crowded the road. The GPS ticked down miles. Adrian's heart hammered against his ribs. He had no plan beyond getting to that estate, no idea what he'd do when he got there. But Serena had risked everything to take down Lucian. The least Adrian could do was try to save her, even if it killed him. Back. Serena worked at the cuffs until her wrists were slick with blood. The metal didn't budge. She'd been locked in the stone room for hours. No food, no water, just the sound of her own breathing and the drip of something leaking in the corner. She thought about Adrian's press conference, about how spectacularly stupid and brave it had been. Lucien would kill him for that, would make it slow, and Serena would be forced to watch, knowing it was her fault, unless she got out. She looked around the room with fresh eyes. Stone walls, concrete floor, one door, one window, small, high up, barred. Nothing she could use as a weapon, nothing she could... Wait. The chair. She was cuffed to a chair bolted to the floor, but the bolts were old. Rust stained the concrete around them. Serena stood as much as the cuffs allowed, then threw her weight sideways. The chair tilted, but held. She tried again, and again. On the fourth try, something groaned. The left bolt shifted, just slightly. Her heart leapt. She kept going, throwing her body against the restraints until sweat poured down her face and her shoulders screamed. The bolt shifted more, then more. Finally, with a crack that sounded like a gunshot, it broke free. The chair tilted sharply. Serena fell, dragging the chair with her. The right bolt held, but now she had leverage. She braced her feet against the wall and pulled. Her wrists burned. Her arms felt like they were tearing from their sockets. The second bolt broke. Serena collapsed, the chair clattering beside her. She was still cuffed to it, but now she could move. She dragged the chair to the door, listening. Footsteps above her, voices, but nothing close. The door was locked from the outside. No way to pick it. But the hinges... Serena examined them. Old, rusted, the same as the bolts. She wedged the chair leg under the bottom hinge and levered it. The metal groaned. She levered harder, using her full weight. The hinge pin shifted, then popped free. She moved to the top hinge. This one was tighter, the rust thicker. Serena's hands shook from exhaustion, but she kept working. Minutes crawled past. Sweat dripped into her eyes. The pin popped free. Serena pulled the door toward her. It resisted, still held by the lock. But with both hinges gone, there was enough flex. She pulled harder, wedging her fingers into the gap, and the door bent just enough for her to squeeze through. She was out. The hallway was empty. Serena dragged the chair behind her, still cuffed to it, moving as quietly as she could. She needed a weapon, needed a phone, needed... Footsteps. Serena froze. The knife cleaner rounded the corner, his eyes widening when he saw her. He reached for his gun. Serena swung the chair. It caught him in the face with a sickening crack. He staggered, blood pouring from his nose. Serena swung again, this time aiming for his gun hand. The chair connected and the gun clattered to the floor. She dropped the chair and lunged for the weapon. Her fingers closed around cold metal. The man grabbed her hair, yanking her back. Serena twisted, bringing the gun up, and fired. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. The man dropped, clutching his leg, screaming. Serena didn't wait. She ran, her cuffed hands clutching the gun, the chair still dangling from one wrist by its broken armrest. She burst through a door into blinding daylight. The estate grounds spread before her, manicured lawns, a long driveway, forest beyond. A car was parked near the entrance. Serena ran for it, her lungs burning. Shouts erupted behind her. More of Lucian's men. She didn't look back. She reached the car, tried the door, locked. She smashed the window with the gun, reached inside, unlocked it, climbed in. No keys. Damn it! Gunshots cracked. The windshield spiderwebbed. Serena ducked, her heart in her throat. She fumbled under the steering column, ripping at wires. She'd seen this in movies. Hot wire. How hard could it be? More gunshots. The rear window exploded. Serena's hand shook so badly she could barely grip the wires. She touched two together. Nothing. She tried two different ones. Sparks flew. The engine coughed. Come on, she whispered. Come on, come on. The engine roared to life. Serena stomped on the gas. The car lurched forward, tires spinning. Men dove out of the way. She swerved onto the driveway, accelerating blindly, the chair still cuffed to her wrist, banging against her leg. The gate loomed ahead, closed, iron, locked. Serena didn't slow down. The car hit the gate doing 60. Metal screamed. The gate buckled, then gave way. The car burst through onto the gravel road beyond. Serena kept driving, her hands white-knuckled on the wheel, her breath coming in ragged sobs. She didn't know where she was going, didn't know if anyone was following. She just drove. Adrian and Marcus reached the estate to find chaos. The front gate was mangled, tire tracks leading away. Men shouted in the distance. Smoke rose from somewhere behind the mansion. What the hell happened here? Marcus muttered. Adrian's chest tightened. Serena. They drove up to the house. One of Lucien's men lay on the front steps, clutching his leg, blood pooling around him. He looked up when they approached, his face pale. She's gone, he gasped. The bitch shot me and stole a car. Adrian wanted to laugh, wanted to cry. Which way? The man gestured weakly toward the road. Adrian turned to Marcus. Find her. I'll handle Lucien. You can't go in there alone. She's out. That's all that matters. Adrian pulled out his phone, showing Marcus the GPS coordinates Serena had sent him weeks ago. A backup location, a safe house she'd set up in case everything went wrong. If I don't make it out, find her there. Give her the evidence. Make sure she finishes this. Marcus grabbed Adrian's arm. Don't be a hero. It doesn't suit you. Adrian smiled grimly. Too late. He walked toward the mansion, his heart pounding. The front door was open. He stepped inside, his footsteps echoing on marble. The place was empty. Abandoned. Like everyone had left in a hurry. Lucien, Adrian called. I know you're here. Silence. Then, from somewhere above, come up, Adrian. Let's finish this. Adrian climbed the stairs, his legs shaking. He found Lucien in an office overlooking the grounds, standing by the window, his back to the door. She got away, Lucien said. I underestimated her. Again. Let her go, Lucien. This is between us now. Lucien turned, and for the first time, Adrian saw something other than cold calculation in his eyes. Rage. Pure, unfiltered rage. You destroyed everything, Lucien said quietly. My reputation, my operations, years of work, all because you couldn't accept that you'd lost. You used her. You used both of us. And you stole from her for 7 years, Lucien's voice rose. Don't pretend you're the hero here, Adrian. You're just as much a monster as I am. Maybe, but at least I'm trying to fix it. Lucien laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Fix it? You can't fix this. The moment you went public, you signed your death warrant, and hers. Adrian's blood ran cold. What did you do? I have people everywhere. Even now they're looking for her. And when they find her, Adrian lunged. He didn't think. Didn't plan. He just moved, closing the distance between them in 2 strides, his fist connecting with Lucien's jaw. Lucien staggered, surprised, then recovered and drove his elbow into Adrian's ribs. Pain exploded through Adrian's chest. He gasped, doubling over. Lucien grabbed his hair, slamming his face into the desk. Blood poured from Adrian's nose. His vision blurred. You should have stayed down, Lucien hissed. Adrian's hand closed around something on the desk, a letter opener. He swung it blindly. The blade caught Lucien's arm, slicing through fabric and skin. Lucien roared, releasing Adrian. Adrian stumbled back, the letter opener slick with blood. Lucien pressed his hand to his arm, his face twisted in fury. You're dead, Lucien said. He pulled a gun from his jacket. Adrian dove behind the desk as the first shot rang out. Wood splintered. Adrian scrambled on his hands and knees, his heart hammering. Another shot. Closer. He was going to die here. But if he could buy Serena enough time to get away, If Marcus could find her and get her the evidence, then maybe it would be worth it. Adrian stood, the letter opener raised like a pathetic weapon. Lucien aimed the gun at his chest, and then the window exploded. Glass rained down as someone crashed through. Serena hit the floor in a roll, blood streaking her face, a chair still dangling from one cuffed wrist, a gun in her hand. She fired twice. Both shots hit Lucien's center mass. He staggered, his gun falling from his hand. Blood bloomed across his white shirt. He looked down at the wounds, then at Serena, his expression almost confused. "You were supposed to stay locked up," he said. Serena's voice was ice. "I don't do what I'm supposed to." Lucien collapsed. Serena stood there, the gun shaking in her hand, her chest heaving. Adrian stared at her, unable to process what had just happened. "You came back," he said. "Of course I came back, you idiot." Serena lowered the gun. "Did you really think I'd let him kill you after everything?" "I thought—" "Don't think, just move. We need to get out of here before his people realize what happened." Adrian nodded, his legs unsteady. They ran together, down the stairs, out the front door, into the sunlight. Marcus was waiting in the car, engine running. "Get in!" he shouted. They dove into the back seat. Marcus floored it, the car fishtailing down the gravel road. Adrian looked back at the mansion, at Lucien's body somewhere inside. It was over. But looking at Serena beside him, bleeding, exhausted, still cuffed to a piece of broken chair, Adrian realized it wasn't over at all. It was just beginning. The safe house was a rental property 3 hours north of the city, a cabin Serena had leased under a false name months ago, back when she'd still believed planning for the worst was paranoia instead of survival. Marcus drove them there in silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his eyes checking the rearview mirror every 30 seconds. Adrian sat in the passenger seat holding a rag to his bleeding nose. Serena sprawled in the back. The broken chair finally sawed off her wrist by a hacksaw Marcus kept in his trunk, her hand still cuffed, but at least mobile. Nobody spoke. There was nothing to say that wouldn't sound insane. They pulled up to the cabin just as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of rust and ash. Marcus killed the engine and turned to face them. "Lucien Drax is dead," he said, his voice flat, "which means his network is about to tear itself apart looking for who killed him. You two need to disappear, tonight." "We can't run," Serena said, her voice hoarse. "Not until we finish this." "Finish what? You put 2 bullets in the man? It's finished." "His operation isn't. His people aren't. If we run now, they'll hunt us forever." Serena leaned forward, ignoring the pain screaming through her shoulders. "But if we give the authorities everything, every name, every transaction, every piece of evidence we have, Lucien's entire network goes down with him. We'll be witnesses, not fugitives." Marcus shook his head. "You're talking about testifying against some of the most dangerous people in the country. You think witness protection is going to save you?" "I think doing nothing will kill us faster." Adrian finally looked up, the rag stained dark with blood. "She's right. We have to see this through." Marcus stared at them both like they'd lost their minds. Maybe they had. He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a burner phone, tossing it to Serena. "Make your calls, set up the meeting. But if this goes sideways, I was never here." He climbed out of the car, slamming the door. "I'll keep watch. You've got 2 hours before I drag you both out of here, whether you're ready or not." He walked toward the tree line, leaving them alone. Serena looked down at the phone, then at Adrian. His face was a mess, swollen, bruised, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past week. "You didn't have to come back for me," Adrian said quietly. "Yes, I did." "Why?" "After everything I did to you." "Because you came for me first." Serena's throat tightened. "Nobody's ever done that before." Adrian's jaw clenched. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closed it. Instead, he just nodded. Serena dialed the number for the district attorney's office. Batan. The meeting happened in a windowless conference room at the DA's office at 10 o'clock that night. Serena and Adrian sat on one side of a scarred wooden table, flanked by Marcus, who'd insisted on staying despite his earlier protests. Across from them sat District Attorney Rachel Chen, 2 federal prosecutors, and a woman from the FBI's Organized Crime Division who looked like she could kill someone with her pen. Rachel Chen was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, with gray hair pulled into a severe bun. She'd built her career prosecuting white-collar criminals and didn't look impressed by anything she was seeing. "Let me make sure I understand," Chen said, her voice clipped. "You're telling me that Lucian Drax, a man with ties to half the city's elite, a man who sits on charity boards and hosts fundraisers, was running a criminal empire. And you killed him." "Self-defense," Serena said. "He was going to kill us both." "Where's the body?" "His estate. 40 minutes outside the city. I can give you the exact address." Chen made a note. "And you have evidence of his criminal activities?" Adrian slid the folder across the table, the same folder they'd compiled over sleepless weeks. Financial records, transaction logs, emails, names, dates, a roadmap of corruption that stretched back years. The FBI agent opened it, her expression unchanging as she scanned the contents. The two prosecutors leaned in, reading over her shoulder. Minutes passed in tense silence. Finally, Chen looked up. "This is substantial. If even half of it's verifiable, we're looking at RICO charges, money laundering, fraud, conspiracy." She paused. "But it's also incomplete. Most of these transactions trace back to shell corporations. We'll need witnesses, testimony, people willing to flip on Drax's network." "We'll testify," Serena said. "You'll need protection, both of you. Drax's people will be looking for blood." "We know." Chen studied them for a long moment, her gaze moving from Serena's bruised face to Adrian's swollen nose. "Why are you doing this? You could have disappeared, changed your names, started over somewhere Drax's network would never find you." Serena's hands tightened in her lap. "Because running doesn't end it. It just postpones it. And because it's the right thing to do," Adrian added quietly. Chen's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "Right. Well, the right thing is going to make your lives hell for the foreseeable future. You understand that?" They both nodded. "Good." Chen closed the folder. "We'll verify this information. If it checks out, we'll move forward with arrests. In the meantime, you're both going into protective custody, effective immediately." The FBI agent stood. "I'll make the arrangements. We have a facility upstate that's secure. You'll stay there until we can guarantee your safety." Serena's stomach dropped. Another cage. Another loss of control. But she forced herself to nod. This was the price. This was what justice cost. They were escorted out through a back entrance, loaded into an unmarked van with blacked-out windows. Marcus stayed behind, shaking Adrian's hand one last time. "You're braver than I gave you credit for," Marcus said. "Both of you." "Or stupider," Adrian replied. Marcus smiled. "Sometimes it's the same thing." The van pulled away, and Serena watched the city disappear through a gap in the window tint. Lights blurred into streaks. Buildings became shadows. Everything she'd fought for, everything she'd destroyed, was back there in that city, a battleground she was leaving behind. Adrian sat beside her, staring at his hands. The silence stretched between them, heavy with words neither knew how to say. Finally, Serena spoke. "I'm sorry." Adrian looked up, surprised. "For what?" "For dragging you into this. For using you the same way Lucienne used me. For—" "Stop." Adrian's voice was firm. "You didn't drag me anywhere. I came because I owed you, because you were right about everything I did to you." He swallowed hard. "I spent 7 years stealing your work and convincing myself I deserved it, that I was the visionary and you were just support. I erased you, Serena, completely. And I can't fix that. Ever." Serena's throat burned. "No, you can't. But I can make sure everyone knows the truth. When this goes to trial, when the press asks questions, I'll tell them everything. Whose ideas built Locke Enterprises? Who really deserved the credit?" He met her eyes. "I'll make sure your name is the one that gets remembered." Serena looked at him. This man she'd loved once, hated deeply, and now couldn't quite categorize. He looked broken, genuine, like he'd finally cracked open and found something human underneath all the arrogance. "That doesn't make us even," she said. "I know. It doesn't make us friends. I know that too. But it's a start." Adrian nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's a start. The protective custody facility was exactly what Serena expected. Sterile, isolated, designed to erase identity. She and Adrian were given separate rooms in different wings, allowed 1 hour of supervised contact per day, forbidden from communicating with anyone outside without clearance. It felt like prison. Maybe it was. The days blurred together, debriefings with prosecutors, interviews with FBI agents, endless questions about Lucian, about the operation, about every detail they could remember. Serena answered mechanically, her mind elsewhere. At night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd ever feel safe again. Wondering if destroying Adrian and then Lucian had been worth the cost. She'd wanted revenge. She'd gotten it. But the victory tasted like ash. 3 weeks into their stay, Rachel Chen visited. She found Serena in the common room, staring out a barred window at nothing. "We've made arrests," Chen said without preamble. 43 people connected to Drax's network, more coming. Your testimony was the key that unlocked everything. Serena turned. "And Lucian's body? Found exactly where you said it would be. Medical examiner confirmed cause of death. Self-defense claim is holding up." Chen sat down across from her. "You're a hero, Ms. Vale. You brought down one of the largest criminal operations in the state." "I don't feel like a hero. Most heroes don't." Chen leaned forward. "The trial starts in 3 months. You and Adrian will be the primary witnesses. After that, assuming you survive, and I say that with complete seriousness, you'll be free to go. New identities if you want them. Relocation assistance. A chance to start over." Serena's laugh was bitter. "Start over as who? I've been so many people I don't remember which one was real." Chen's expression softened. "Then maybe that's what you figure out next. Who you actually are when nobody's trying to use you or erase you or control you." She stood. "You've got time. Use it." She left, and Serena sat alone with the weight of those words. The trial was a spectacle. Media from every outlet packed the courtroom. Photographers lined the steps outside. The charges against Drax's network were staggering. RICO violations, money laundering, fraud, extortion, conspiracy to commit murder. 43 defendants, most of them wealthy, powerful, untouchable. Until now, Serena took the stand first. She wore a simple gray suit, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked the jury in the eyes and told them everything. About marrying Lucien for protection, about discovering his criminal empire, about the night he'd locked her in that stone room and told her she was nothing but a tool. The defense attorneys tried to tear her apart, called her a liar, an opportunist, a woman scorned who'd killed her husband and fabricated evidence to cover it up. Serena didn't flinch. She'd faced worse than lawyers. When they asked why she'd married Lucien in the first place, she told the truth. "Because I was running from one man who'd erased me, and I didn't realize I was running toward another who'd do worse." The courtroom went silent. Adrian testified next. He was harder to watch, nervous, his voice shaking as he admitted to stealing Serena's work, to building his empire on her ideas, to treating her like she was disposable. The prosecution used him to establish motive, to show why Serena had been vulnerable to Lucian's manipulation. The defense used him to paint Serena as vengeful, calculating, dangerous. Adrian looked at Serena when he finished, his eyes red. She didn't look away. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 days. When the verdict came back, guilty on all counts for 38 of the 43 defendants, Serena felt nothing, no relief, no satisfaction, just exhaustion so deep it felt like drowning. Rachel Chen found her outside the courthouse, away from the cameras. "You won," Chen said. Serena shook her head. "Nobody won. We just survived." Sometimes that's enough. The government offered Serena a new identity, new name, new city, enough money to start over somewhere nobody would ever find her. She stared at the paperwork for hours, pen hovering over the signature line. In the end, she didn't sign. "I'm done being erased," she told the agent processing her release. "I'll take my chances as myself." That's dangerous. Everything's dangerous. They released her on a Tuesday morning. Adrian was released the same day. They stood outside the facility together, two people who'd destroyed and saved each other in equal measure, unsure what came next. "What are you going to do?" Adrian asked. Serena looked at the horizon, open, endless, terrifying. "I don't know, something that's actually mine. The DA mentioned that Locke Enterprises is being liquidated as part of the seizure, assets sold off." Adrian's voice was quiet. "But the core intellectual property, the algorithms, the systems, the ideas, those were never technically mine. They were yours. Legally, you have a claim." Serena stared at him. "You're giving me the company?" I'm giving you back what I stole. What you do with it is up to you. Why? Because it was never mine to keep. Adrian looked at her, and for the first time she saw something other than ego in his eyes. Regret. Genuine, bone-deep regret. Build something with it. Something better than I ever could. He turned and walked away, climbing into a waiting car. Serena watched him disappear and felt something inside her shift. Not forgiveness, but maybe the beginning of letting go. Ugh. 6 months later, Serena stood in front of a building she'd purchased with the settlement from Locke Enterprises liquidation. It was smaller than Adrian's old headquarters, more modest, but it was hers. The sign above the door read, Veil Technologies. She'd rebuilt from the ground up, hired people she trusted, developed products under her own name. No more hiding, no more letting someone else take credit. Every line of code, every algorithm, every innovation carried her signature. It was terrifying, liberating, real. Her assistant poked her head out of the entrance. Ms. Vale, the investor meeting starts in 10 minutes. Serena nodded, taking one last look at the sign. Then she walked inside. The conference room was small but bright, windows overlooking the city. 5 investors sat around the table, venture capitalists who'd done their research, who knew her story, who were betting on her despite the risks. Serena opened her laptop and pulled up the presentation. No co-founder to defer to, no partner to share the spotlight, just her. Good morning, she said, her voice steady. Let me show you what I've built. Bike. Adrian Locke's story ended differently. He didn't start another company, didn't try to rebuild his empire. Instead, he took the money from the liquidation, what little remained after fines and settlements, and donated it. Scholarships for women in tech, funding for programs that supported people whose work had been stolen or undervalued, anonymous, quiet contributions that would never carry his name. He moved to a small town 3 states away, rented a modest apartment, got a job teaching business ethics at a community college. Ironic, he knew, but the students didn't care about his past. They just wanted someone who'd been through the fire and could teach them how to avoid the flames. He thought about Serena sometimes, wondered if she'd succeeded, if Veil Technologies had taken off, if she'd found peace. He hoped so, even if he'd never know for sure. One evening, his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Adrian Locke? Speaking. This is Jennifer Park from TechWire. I'm doing a story on the rise of Veil Technologies and Serena Vale's remarkable comeback. I was hoping to get a quote from you about your time working with her. Adrian's throat tightened. What kind of quote? Just your perspective on her contributions to what was then Locke Enterprises, the innovation she developed, her role in the company's early success. Adrian closed his eyes. This was it. The moment where he could rewrite the narrative one last time, claim partnership, downplay her role, protect what was left of his reputation. Instead, he told the truth. Serena Vale was the architect of everything Locke Enterprises became. The automation algorithms, the client acquisition strategies, the core technologies that made the company valuable, those were all hers. I took credit because I was too arrogant to admit I needed her, too insecure to share the spotlight. His voice cracked. She was the genius. I was just the name on the door. Jennifer Park was silent for a moment. That's incredibly candid. It's the truth. You can quote me on that. Thank you, Mr. Locke. The line went dead. Adrian sat in his small apartment, the city lights blinking outside, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Relief. Young. Serena saw the article 3 days later. A full feature in TechWire about Veil Technologies, about her innovations, about the journey from erasure to empire. And buried in the middle, a quote from Adrian Locke that made her stop breathing. Serena Vale was the architect of everything Locke Enterprises became. The automation algorithms, the client acquisition strategies, the core technologies that made the company valuable, those were all hers. I took credit because I was too arrogant to admit I needed her, too insecure to share the spotlight. She was the genius. I was just the name on the door. Serena read it 3 times. Then she closed her laptop and stared out the window of her office, her real office, the one that belonged to her, that couldn't be taken away. She thought about calling him, thanking him, yelling at him. She didn't know. In the end, she did nothing, Because some debts couldn't be settled with words, some wounds didn't heal just because someone finally told the truth. But maybe, just maybe, acknowledgement was enough. Not for forgiveness, but for closure. Serena turned back to her work. There was a product launch next month, a keynote speech she needed to write, investors to meet, employees counting on her. She had an empire to build, a real one this time. And this time, nobody could take it away. 2 years after the trial, Serena received an invitation to speak at a tech conference in the city where it had all begun. She almost declined. Too many memories, too much pain, but her assistant convinced her. It's the biggest conference in the industry. Everyone who's anyone will be there. It's your chance to show them you're not just surviving, you're thriving. Serena agreed. The night of the keynote, she stood backstage, her heart pounding. The auditorium was packed, 2,000 people, all waiting to hear her story. She could see them through the gap in the curtain, their faces illuminated by phone screens. The host introduced her. Please welcome a woman who turned erasure into empire, who fought back against those who tried to silence her, who proved that the truth always wins in the end. Serena Vale. Applause erupted. Serena walked onto the stage, blinking in the spotlight. She reached the podium, gripped its edges, and looked out at the sea of faces. And in the back row, barely visible, she saw him. Adrian. He wasn't supposed to be here, hadn't been invited. But there he sat, his face older, wearier, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Their eyes met across the distance. He nodded once, a small gesture, acknowledgement, maybe apology, maybe goodbye. Serena nodded back. Then she turned to the audience and began to speak. 7 years ago, someone told me I was replaceable, that my contributions didn't matter, that I was just a supporting character in someone else's story. Her voice carried through the auditorium, strong and clear. I believed him, and that belief almost destroyed me. The room was silent. But here's what I learned. You can't be erased unless you let yourself be. You can't be replaced unless you believe you're replaceable. And you can't be silenced unless you stop speaking. She paused, letting the words settle. I rebuilt myself from nothing. Not because I wanted revenge, though I won't lie, revenge felt pretty good for a while. A ripple of laughter. But because I refused to let someone else's narrative become my truth, I refused to be invisible. Serena looked at Adrian one last time. He was crying, silent tears tracking down his face. She looked away. To everyone watching who's ever been underestimated, stolen from, or told you don't matter, I'm here to tell you that you do. Your voice matters. Your work matters. You matter. And no one, no matter how powerful, how charismatic, how convincing, gets to take that away from you. The applause started slowly, then built into a roar. People stood, cheered, some cried. Serena stood at the podium, absorbing it. Not because she needed their validation, but because for the first time in her life, she wasn't performing for anyone, wasn't pretending to be smaller than she was, wasn't hiding. She was just herself. And that was enough. After the conference, Serena walked out into the cool night air. The city stretched before her, glittering and indifferent. She breathed in the smell of rain and exhaust and possibility. Adrian was waiting by her car. You shouldn't be here, Serena said. I know. I could call security. You could. She didn't. They stood in awkward silence, two people who'd destroyed each other and somehow survived. Adrian looked smaller than she remembered, more human. That was a good speech, he said finally. Thank you. I meant what I said in the article about you being the genius. I know. Adrian's hands shook. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I need you to know. I see you now, who you really are, what you're capable of. And I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to understand that. Serena's throat tightened. You didn't just lose everything, Adrian. You threw it away, and you can't get it back. I know. We're not friends. We're not partners. We're not anything. I know. But Serena hesitated, searching for the right words. Maybe someday we'll be two people who survived the same war, and that's all we need to be. Adrian nodded, his eyes wet. That's more than I deserve. Probably. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you, of what you've built. Serena watched him walk away, disappearing into the crowd. She waited until he was gone, then climbed into her car. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't feel the cathartic release she'd expected. She just felt tired and ready to go home. Fictional. Veil Technologies thrived. Within 3 years, it was valued at over $200 million. Serena hired aggressively, prioritizing people whose ideas had been stolen, whose voices had been silenced, whose talents had been overlooked. She built a culture of transparency, of credit where credit was due, of making sure everyone's name appeared on the work they created. She never married again, never felt the need. Her life was full, challenging, exhausting, occasionally lonely, but entirely hers. Sometimes, late at night when the office was empty, she'd stand at her window overlooking the city and think about Lucien, about Adrian, about the versions of herself she'd left behind in pursuit of justice. She didn't regret it, but she carried the weight of it. The knowledge that revenge, even righteous revenge, extracted a price that couldn't be calculated in courtrooms or bank accounts. She'd won. But winning had cost her 7 years of her life, her ability to trust, her belief that people could be good. Still, she'd survived. And in surviving, she'd proven that erasure wasn't permanent, that silence could be broken, that the truth eventually always found a way through. On the 5-year anniversary of Lucien's death, Serena received a letter. No return address, just a single sheet of paper with handwriting she recognized. I'm teaching now. It's not much, but I'm trying to make sure the next generation doesn't make the same mistakes I did. I tell them about you, about how brilliance doesn't need to steal to succeed, about how the people who create deserve the credit. I don't expect a response. I don't deserve one. But I wanted you to know you changed me, not in some dramatic redemption way, but in the small, daily ways that actually matter. I look at the work my students do, and I make sure they know it's theirs. I see women being talked over in meetings, and I shut it down. I hear men taking credit for others' ideas, and I call it out. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's what I can do. I hope you're happy. I hope Veil Technologies becomes everything you dreamed. I hope you never think of me again. But if you do, I hope you know that you didn't just save yourself. You saved me too. A. Serena read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully, placed it in a drawer, and locked it away. She didn't respond. Some stories didn't need epilogues. Some wounds didn't need bandages. Some people didn't need forgiveness to move forward. They just needed to keep walking. 10 years after the trial, a journalist asked Serena if she'd do it all again. If knowing what it would cost, the fear, the violence, the years of looking over her shoulder, she'd still choose revenge. Serena thought about it. Really thought. I didn't choose revenge, she said finally. I chose survival. And survival looked like fighting back. But was it worth it? Serena looked at the empire she'd built, at the people she'd hired, at the innovations carrying her name, at the life she'd claimed despite everyone who'd tried to take it from her. Ask me again in another 10 years, she said. But she already knew the answer. Yes, it had been worth it. Not because the victory was sweet. Not because justice felt satisfying. Not because destroying the men who tried to destroy her had healed anything, but because she'd survived. And in a world that tried to erase her, survival was the ultimate rebellion. Serena Vale had been dismissed, stolen from, locked away, and nearly killed, and she'd walked out of every cage they'd put her in. That was worth everything. Chicken. The final scene played out not in a courtroom or a penthouse or a mansion besieged by violence. It played out in a small cafe overlooking a harbor, the same cafe where Serena had first started planning her return. She sat alone, drinking espresso, her laptop open to emails from investors and partners and employees who saw her as a leader, not a ghost. The autumn sun slanted through the windows, warming her face. And for the first time in years, maybe in her entire life, Serena Vale felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Peace. Not happiness. Not contentment. Not the absence of pain. Just the quiet certainty that she'd become exactly who she was supposed to be. No one could take that from her. Not Adrian, not Lucien, not anyone. She closed her laptop, finished her coffee, and walked out into the city that had tried to destroy her. And this time, she didn't disappear. She owned it.